Hello, my name is Rob Knowles, and I'm going to be guiding you through part of your self-study for your refresher training, specifically designed for individuals renewing their SIA door supervisor or security officer licenses after the 1st of April 2025. So the refresher training has been developed by industry experts in collaboration with the SIA to ensure that security operatives can perform their duties confidently and legally for the next 3 years. The goal is to refresh the essential skills and knowledge necessary for effective security operations. So the refresher course can be either delivered over a minimum of 3 days for door supervisors or 1 full day for security officers. However, if you use self-study, it reduces the contact hours down significantly. So for door supervisors, it reduces the contact hours from 21 hours over 3 days just down to 11 hours and 15 minutes, which we can easily fit into a 2 day of classroom training. For security officers, it reduces the required contact hours from 7 hours down just to 3 hours. And not all of the subjects can be effectively delivered through self-study, as some require hands-on demonstrations and obviously the filmed practical assessments, etc. But by completing all modules that can be delivered by self-study, it significantly reduces, of course, the face-to-face contact hours. So therefore, it is mandatory that all of the associated self-study must be completed before attending the classroom section of the course, of course, because it significantly reduces the additional face-to-face delivery. So if any part of the online training is not completed prior to the start of the course, you will not be allowed to attend and will need to rebook for a future session. And this also includes the Action Counter Terror modules, which can be completed either through the Highfields e-learning platform or directly through Protect UK. If you've recently completed both of your X, i.e. within the last 6 months or so, you don't need to redo them again unless you want to. You can just simply email me your certificates and I'll add them to your account and apply for the exemption. It's also a requirement again to have that valid first aid qualification in place to be able to enroll on either the security officer or the door supervisor refresher training. So that first aid qualification has got to be at the level of EFAW, that's emergency first aid at work, or equivalent or above, with a minimum of 12 months validity from the start date of the course. So again, if you've already got that in place, please email me a copy so I can add it to your account and apply for exemption. If you don't already have the first aid qualification in place and you're going to be taking it as part of the refresher training with us, then also you need to ensure that the EFAW pre-course study is also completed before the actual start of the training. So for those who are taking a first aid with us, you'll be able to access the first aid EFAW pre-course module the same place you access at Counter-Terrors, which is through the Highfields e-learning system. Okay, so before we explore the modules and topics in more detail, it's worth noting that the first 3 learning outcomes are actually identical for a door supervisor and a security officer. Although there are some slight variations in the assessment criteria, so for example, with security officers, they would also need to cover things like vehicle searching. And of course, dealing with additional equipment with things like body scanners, search mirrors, etc. But they're not directly relevant to a door supervisor. But because of a lot of door supervisors also work as security officers, and because there's only a few minor differences, we will cover them in the same study, but I will highlight the key differences as they come up. So door supervisors can then decide if they want to do that a little bit or not, or skip on to the next section. So this approach allows us to streamline the training process to avoid repetition, also allows us to use the shared video content for both roles. So let's now explore the refresher training modules and the topics that we'll cover in these sessions. Okay, so module 1 is going to be the principles of working in the private security industry refresher, or PSI refresher. So learning outcome 1 is to know how to conduct effective search procedures. Learning outcome 2 is understand how to keep vulnerable people safe. Learning outcome 3 is understanding terror threats and the role of the security operative in the event of a terror threat. And then that's it. That's it for the security officer, not for the door supervisors. The door supervisors will then go on to do module 4, which is knowing how to safeguard the public from incidents of spiking. Door supervisors will then go into module 2, which is the PSI, which is the application of physical intervention skills for the private security industry, which in brief at the moment covers the things like implications, associated risks, ways to reduce risks, together with a refresher on all the PI skills and the assessments, i.e. what you did before. Okay, so let's look at now the assessments. So how you're going to be assessed. So first of all, let's look at security officers. So you're going to be assessed by doing a 45-minute multiple choice exam, where you've got 28 questions, and to pass, you need to get 70%, which is 20 out of 28 or thereabouts. You're also going to need to be filmed conducting a search of a person on the property, and that's it. I'll say that's it, but that's it for the security officer. Door supervisors, you're going to do a multiple choice exam, which is going to take, or you get 55 minutes to complete it. There's 35 questions, and to pass that, you need 25 out of 35, which is 71% maybe, or round about then. And you've also got to do the search of an individual in their property, which also needs to be video recorded. Door supervisors, in addition, you then got to do your PI assessments, haven't you? So the PI assessments for the theory, you're going to be assessed with the 45-minute multiple choice exam, where you get 30 questions. You need to get 24 out of 30, so 80%. And of course, you should remember that from the last time you did it. And then comes to the practical skills assessments as well, isn't it? So that's all of the physical skills need to be filmed. And then you've got to have the professional discussion surrounding the 6 critical areas of physical intervention. And now all of that information is going to be covered in the actual online study. So hopefully you should be prepped, ready for it. Okay, so let's now break down the modules into a little more detail to understand how they will be delivered and the content you're actually going to be assessed on. Okay, so the learning is organized into learning outcomes and assessment criteria. So in simple terms, a learning outcome specifies what you're going to be able to demonstrate after learning the experience, while the assessment criteria outlines how the achievement for the outcomes are going to be measured. So for example, with this course, it's assessed with a mixture of multiple choice exams and video practical assessments. Okay, so let's now look into the content. Let's look at the first module, which is PSI refresher, and learning outcome 1, which is knowing how to conduct effective search procedures. Now remember, this is just a whistle-stop tour. The actual training videos are going to be after this one, but this is just to give you an idea of what's coming up and what's in front of you. Okay, so let's look at the assessment criterion for the first learning outcome. So state the difference between searches carried out by a security operative. That's what you'll need to do. And of course, the difference here, the add-on bit for security officers are going to be including vehicles. And that's because a door supervisors rarely search vehicles, although if a door supervisor is wearing a security officer hat and they're working a security officer role, then of course it can be beneficial to do so. You're also going to need to identify security officers' right to search. If you think of the main difference there in relation to a security officer, is going to be where employees in some areas, as part of their contract, they kind of agree to be searched. And it's mainly to do with obviously people bringing things in or taking things out, which could include things like sensitive information. So your basic right to search for a door supervisor and a few little additional bits for the security officer. Recognize actions to take in the event of a search refusal. Identify different types of search equipment. Now consider with security officer, we're also going to discuss things like baggage scanners, X-ray scanning, search mirrors, search dogs, etc. Recognize possible hazards when conducting a search. State precautions to take when carrying out a search. Obviously security officers including vehicle precautions. And then demonstrate how to search people and their possessions, which this is also going to be covered in the classroom, just in a short session to prep you up. So that we're going to give you a search demo. When you get to the classroom, we'll have a go, we'll partner up, with a metal detector, etc., just to get happy with it before we actually go on to the filming elements. There's an additional assessment criteria here, which is just for security officers, not for door supervisors, and that's going to be to state the typical areas of a vehicle to be searched. So when we get to that module, door supervisors, it's down to you. You can skip the module or you can do it anyway. Identify action to take if prohibited or restrictive items are found in a search. State the actions to take if an incident or an accident happens. Identify reasons for carrying out a premises search. Identify reasons for completing search documentation. So that's it. Module 1 covered. So now let's look at module 2, which again is another shared module. Not as long as module 1, thankfully. So module 2 is understand the learning outcomes, understand how to keep vulnerable people safe. So the assessment criteria for this one's going to be recognizing your duty of care towards vulnerable people. Identify factors that could make someone more vulnerable, actions security officers should take towards vulnerable individuals, identifying behaviors that may be exhibited by sexual predators, indicators of abuse, how to deal with allegations of sexual assault, and how to deal with antisocial behavior. So that's it. There's module 2 covered. So let's now look at module 3, which is understand counter-terror and terror threats as they relate to a security officer. So in this, the assessment criteria for this one's going to be identify the different threat levels, recognize common terror attacks, actions are taken in the event of a terror attack, or terror threat, I should say, identify procedures to follow when dealing with suspicious items, identify behaviors that could indicate suspicious activity, and know how to respond to suspicious behavior. Now, all of those assessment criteria delivered by the ACT Actions Counter Terror as part of the pre-self-study that you're either going to do via Highfield's e-learning or directly through the Protect UK website. So the counter-terror training acts, they've been developed by counter-terrorism professionals, and of course it's been approved by the SIA to replace the internal training for this subject. So timing-wise, depends on your internet speed, doesn't it really? Because sometimes it can take longer than others, but generally speaking, it takes most people around 50 minutes, that's 50, to do the act awareness one, and about 90 minutes to do the security specific. So that's it for the security officers. That would be it for them. We now go on to the door supervisor. So security officers, if you're being nosy and you just want to have a look, and you can see what the door supervisor is going to now be doing, or you can just turn off, go and make yourself a cup of tea or whatever. So door supervisors, we're now going to cover learning outcome 4, which is knowing how to safeguard the public from incidents of spiking. The assessment criteria for this is going to be, you need to state the methods, different methods of spiking, the law in relation to spiking, indicators that could tell you that a drink has been spiked, behavioral signs of an individual perhaps trying to, or looking like they're going to attempt to spike someone's drink, situations where an individual may be more at risk of spiking, indicators that individual may have been spiked, how to manage a spiking incident, and finally, the actions that door supervisors or venue operators can take to prevent spiking. So some of this, I know, may seem like common sense, right? Teaching a granny to suck eggs, as they say. Well, it could be, and if it is, it means you can go over this module a little bit quicker if you already know the information. But if you don't know the information, well, that is there for you, isn't it? And so at the end of the day, it's just to ensure everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. So a lot of work for some people, not so much work for others, depending on what you've been doing in the industry, isn't it? For the last 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, etc. Yes. Anyway, where am I going? Off track. Let's come back. Module 2 for door supervisors, API-PSI, application of physical intervention skills to the private security industry. So this module refreshes the knowledge and skills that you learned last time and the time before, and maybe the time before that. It's got 5 learning outcomes and 28 assessment criteria. So now we're just going to try to be brief in order to go through those to give you a heads up on what you can be doing again, like you did last time or the time before. So learning outcome 1 for the physical intervention. Know the implications of physical intervention and their use. Assessment criteria. You need to have to explain, demonstrate understanding of the legal and professional implications around physical intervention, identify positive alternatives of physical intervention and the definitions, so differences between defensive skills, physical interventions, different levels of restrictiveness, etc. So that's learning outcome 1. Learning outcome 2 is knowing the risks associated with physical intervention. How are they going to assess on that? The assessment criteria is going to be identify the risk factors involved with use of physical intervention. Recognize signs and symptoms associated with a potential acute behavioral disturbance and or psychosis. State the specific risk with positional asphyxia as well as prolonged physical interventions. That's it for learning outcome 2. Learning outcome 3 is know how to reduce the risks associated with physical intervention. So it's going to ask you to be able to demonstrate understanding of the specific risks relating to physical intervention on the ground and how to correctly manage that. The ways of reducing harm during physical intervention, including the benefits of using the DRA, the dynamic risk assessment where PI is used, how to manage and monitor a person's safety during physical intervention, responsibilities for all involved, as well as obviously when you've immediately finished the physical intervention, and the importance of maintaining physical intervention skills, etc. So that's learning outcome 3. Learning outcome 4 and outcome 5 are going to be the practical skills, which are nothing more than what you did before to ensure that everybody's on the same hymn sheet. Maybe you haven't got to use the skills, but you've got to consider using the skills. They're designed at entry level and all based on nicer, kinder, softer, and gentler. So kind of like the draw 1 skills, we would call it. So the outcomes then. The learning outcome is being able to proficiently and safely use physical skills to protect yourself from others. Assessment criteria. you're going to have to demonstrate your stance, your non-aggressive stance, what we call the assertive stance, and positioning skills. You're going to have to demonstrate skills to protect against blows, disengage from grabs and holds, non-aggressive methods to stop people fighting or one person attacking another, and being able to communicate professionally during fist intervention. Then the last learning outcome for the fist intervention is be able to use non-pain related standing, holding, and escorting techniques safely. So the assessment criteria is you'll have to demonstrate physically prompting an individual using low-level non-restrictive and restrictive one-person and two-person holds and escorts. You'll need to demonstrate your ability to transition between disengagement and escorting techniques, take people up and down the stairs, how to disengage safely, and how to manage risk immediately following disengagement. So there it is. There's the intro video for both the door supervisors and the security officers.